The new chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Joash Amukpitan, says with the new dispensation under his watch, the days of deciding election outcomes in court are numbered. Addressing participants at the 56th Annual Conference of Nigerian Association of Law Teachers held at the University of Abuja, Amukpitan expressed determination to work towards reducing pre-election litigations in Nigeria. He called on legal experts to work with the Commission to reform the electoral system. He said elections would be won at the polling units if proper law framework are put in place, and reaffirmed his commitment to uphold integrity, fairness and transparency in Nigeria's electoral process. Well, lawyer Libros Oshoma joins us now to look at the practicability of the Inec chair's comments. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.
Yeah, good afternoon, Temitokwe. Thank you. And good afternoon, Hawa.
So what do you make of the Inec chairman's vow to end courtroom battles over elections? How feasible is this, considering Nigeria's current political climate?
Yeah, thank you very much. Everybody would want to see a Nigeria where elections are decided not by courts, by a three-man panel, but by the electorate. So certainly Nigerians would love to see that day where INEC will announce results and everybody will shake hands and go home. But that said, it is beyond rhetorics. It is beyond rhetorics in the sense that we've heard INEC former chairman, make similar speeches. Remember, Maurice Iwu once told us that he will conduct a credible election if even that's be the last thing he would do on it. It became a sound bite, but at the end of the day, we knew what became of that election. The new INEC chairman has started well. He's appointed a credible spokesperson, but he should, in a person of Dayo Oketola, who was former editor in Punch, but he shouldn't belabor him too much with issues like this. INEC chairman should sit down and look at what led to the failures of our electoral system, what led to the failure of other INEC chairmen. Why? Because people don't remember the good that INEC ever, would do. It is the bad that people will remember them for. So what led to those issues? First, remember the last election, we talked about electronic transmission of results, and then the INEC glitch that till date has become an albatross for INEC, that they are busy looking for how to, correct that perception and credibility. Remember the 2019 general election, INEC came with, we have server, and then after the election, we have no server. So it is beyond the chairman. It is more about, the electoral management system. You have the resident electoral commissioners, you have the EOs at the local government level, and then INEC also do not have the manpower, ready manpower for election. On the day of election, then you now have ad hoc, staff who are deployed to carry out the day-to-day, electoral processes. So the major job, and coupled with, jokingly these days we say Nigeria is a country where thugs will write an election result for professors to go announce. So all of this culminates into what become the election at the end of the day. It is not INEC that conduct the primaries at the party level, but we see that you have even more, pre-election litigation than even post-election litigation. That's not INEC. Also, the attitude of politicians. So there's a whole lot that INEC needs to do. Not just one person, not just the head, but the chairman also needs to look at the people that he's working with. People of integrity, and then there should be a matching order. You remember the INEC before now, we had people like Mike Igini, who in the first history of Nigeria was able to prosecute electoral offenders and send them to jail. How much of that are we ready to do today? Is the current chairman ready to prosecute deploy funds from INEC to prosecute electoral offenders the way INEC defend cases in court? Because you need to there should be consequences for action. And in action, you need to use some people to set example. So when you do that, people will be scared to rig election. And that's the way you now begin to talk about having the people decide the outcome of election and not the court.
Are
we also ready to ensure that all of the glitches that we noticed in election, is a thing of the past? All of these things are what will determine whether court will interfere or not.
Very well said on all those points, Liberal Soshoma. But speaking of the individuals that would be part of this change, because obviously it's not just the job for the Inec chairman, like you said, concerning litigation, the current legal framework, in what you were saying as well, it does not adequately penalize frivolous petitions or people who are erring on the side of wrong. What specific measures do you think could be implemented to discourage some of this behavior, especially lawyers and politicians that do engage in frivolous litigation during this electioneering process?
Yeah, first and foremost, you also know that in other climes, the Bar Association comes down heavily on lawyers that unnecessarily, because that's largely the job of the Bar Association and also the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee. But in cases where the people who are filing frivolous petitions are very senior members of the bar, the big names in the profession, what happens? These are the people who are ordinarily supposed to penalize lawyers who are filing frivolous petitions. It has nothing to do with INEC in that regard. It is the bar that should look inward and say, just like we say when a judge sits on trial, the judge is on trial. The court also should, the legal profession should look inward also and look at those petitions, the frivolous ones, all lawyers that unnecessarily delay the time of the court. Situations where judges report you to the Bar Council, the Bar Association for disciplinary measures. But here, there are no consequences such as that. So anybody can bring any petition. Even people who did not participate in election, but because they failed primaries, we've seen them in this climb, bring petition before election petition tribunal, despite the fact that they had not participated. What became of them? Nothing. No penalty. And because the Electoral Act also had, tried at some point to try to limit the processes, the number of election petitions that comes, limits by time. And then secondly, also the Electoral Act had also created the opportunity for determination. It gives the tribunal the opportunity to look at all applications filed and then subsequently deliver judgment at the tail end, at the end of hearing. But this also has become an albatross because the courts are bogged down with all kinds of petitions, a situation where you have 6 months to decide, 190 days, that's 6 months.
Liberals, we lost you for a second, but we're back with you. Can you continue with what you were saying? Okay.
So what I said was that that aspect of discipline lawyers will have to do with the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee and the MBA. There should be a synergy between the bar and the bench where frivolous petitions are filed, even though the court must hear them. At the end of the day, it behoves on the court to make recommendations to the disciplinary committee to sanction such lawyers. So when that happens, so the profession is not all about money. It is not all about just filing cases. When a case is frivolous, then certainly, and the court ruled that it is frivolous, then the courts, the disciplinary committee should invite such lawyers to come, answer questions. We've seen in other climes where lawyers have gone to jail, not just for defending, their client, but also for attempting to pull a wool over the eyes of the court and also for attempting to circumvent the process. But here it doesn't happen. So this has nothing to do with INEC, really. It is more about, the bar and the bench creating that opportunity. But for INEC, really, INEC, after every election cycle, INEC keeps a budget to defend election petitions. I have not seen the same energy to prosecute, fraudulent or people who have been alleged to rig election. Apart from the case that I mentioned, that of Mike Igini, Professor Peter Ogban, and Professor Utuk. So, if INEC also dedicates time to ensure that some of its officers, including professors who are returning officers, are prosecuted for manipulating election. It is not just about appealing to, like some, senators have done, to appeal to members. There should be consequences for action. INEC should also set aside a budget to prosecute people who compromise their election. So that way, the INEC chairman would have, drastically reduced people who will compromise the process. And when you reduce people who will compromise the process, certainly the elections will be free and fair, and then transparent, and nobody will want to question them in court. But if people are not punished for offenses, and then...
Well, Libras, thank you so much, for that. But very quickly, what role do you think political parties and candidates themselves should play in reducing pre- and post-election litigation? Very briefly, in a matter of seconds.
Yes, because the political parties are the beneficiaries of every election outcome. This idea of imposition, even though the Electoral Act forbids imposition, and that once candidates have been nominated, substitution, is a no-no. But we've seen situations where candidates are imposed, and then the other candidates who feel that they certainly have upper hands will challenge the process. So the political parties themselves are not have not been able to come to the party in terms of conduct of credible party primaries. Apart from presidential, where we see a lot of horse trading and then they try to be transparent, party primaries at the local level, local government, even at the state level, we see a lot of imposition and lack of transparency. That also, to a very large extent, will affect the outcome of the election. When you oppose candidate, certainly becoming a ruling, especially when it is the ruling party, just the same way we are seeing governors defect into ruling party. And I also disagree that it is not because the economy is so good. I think it is because people want to secure their position electorally, which is a big job for INEC, to truly show that irrespective of the party that you belong, certainly INEC is a different INEC at this time. Anyway, I doubt. So, when the political parties are also not transparent, what do you expect in the general outcome of the election? That's a major challenge that INEC also should face. Transparency at the party primaries and internal party democracy.
Well, we'd like to thank you so much for your participation this afternoon here. Libera Soshoma, thanks for joining us on Newsday.